Hey everybody, I'm Sean Rosensteel, author of The School of Intentional Living and host of Authorized, where authors go live to reveal their insights, stories, and best lessons from their most recent works. Thanks so much for watching today and enjoy this week's episode. Hey everybody, welcome to today's show. I'm so excited to have with us here today Jonna Rowe, author of Burned, My Journey Through Addiction. Jonna, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much, Sean. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Awesome. Hey, I have the Kindle version of your book. Do you have a hard copy you can show the audience here today for us?
I actually do. So there it is.
There it is. Awesome. Yep. Awesome. Jonna, one of the things that I found so interesting about this book is, you came face to face with your addiction. And I really am so impressed with how you wrote this book because you were so honest with the reader and you were so genuine and authentic and vulnerable. So I give you so much credit for that. Tell us a little bit about how this book came to be.
That's a really good question, Sean. The book came to be because I was going through treatments and I had started going to schools, talking to students about, tanning, addiction, and skin cancer, the things I know the best. And I have a full-time job and I wasn't able to speak to as many schools as I wanted to. So I had this idea, hey, in order to reach more people, what can I do? So I thought I need to write a book. Writing the book not only healed me, but it also enables me to help others. And that's what my goal for writing the book was and still is.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about this addiction, because when I think about addiction, when I think about my own struggles, as far as, for me, it was abusing alcohol and it was a severe addiction to tobacco for like 15 years. So a lot of us think about drugs or sex, right? And things of that nature. Your addiction is so fascinating and so unique. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I had a tanning addiction and it started at the age of 10. I didn't have a really good childhood, and it was a way for me as a kid to escape. My goal was to be somebody other than me. And by tanning, it made me look different. It made me feel different. I felt more confident. And it just gradually took over my life and became a full-blown addiction by the time I was in my early 20s.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And you talked a lot about self-worth.
Yes.
In the book. So yes. Where were you then? Where are you now on the other side of all this adversity? I mean, what are your thoughts about this idea of self-worth, right?
Yeah. So self-worth, self-image, self-respect. I struggled with all that as a kid, as most people do. I had some traumatic events happen to me. I didn't have any support system. So this was a coping skill for me. Over the years, especially since I've been, dealing with treatments and surgeries over the last, 9 years, I've developed a different self-worth. Self-image is a big thing that girls, especially, I'm not saying that guys don't struggle with it too, but I know many people struggle with self-image, self-worth. I like to think that I'm a work in progress. I'm not exactly where I want to be yet, but every single day, I take just another, step in the right direction. And it's a lifelong goal for me. It's not something that's easily attainable, but it's definitely within reach.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what you experienced with your skin cancer, right? Because, there was one part of the book that really haunted me. And that was the part about the torture room, as you called it, right?
Right. That is.
Can you share with us some of your experiences in, learning about the fact that you had skin cancer, being diagnosed with that, and some of the treatments that you've gone through over the past, 9 years you mentioned?
Yeah, since 2011, so it's been 9 years. I've learned, so much through the years. I have a skin condition because of all the tanning that I did. It's called, it's pre-skin cancer, but it's called actinic keratosis. And so what I do for that, diagnosis is I use this chemotherapy cream on my skin. And what it does is it burns my skin if there's pre-skin cancer there. I use the cream pretty much every day. You know, I've used it on my face, my hands, my arms. My legs are really bad right now, my back, my chest, you name it, I've used it. And it's so ironic to me that the thing that I like to do was to burn my skin to feel better. And now the treatment that I use or that I have to do to save myself and to, you know, heal my skin as best as I can is to burn it. There's freezing treatments. It's the same thing as if you had a wart, you know, but usually, you know, the warts are usually on like this side of your hand. All of my damage is on the outside of my skin. So instead of like burning or freezing a wart on that side, everything's done on the outside of your skin. Again, I've had things frozen, you know, everywhere, you know, the same things, you know, face, arms, hands. My hands and my face are the worst. And then the torture room, that one, I've done that treatment 3 times, and it's for pre-skin cancer, but they only do the treatment for this on your face, and it's called photodynamic therapy, or PDT is what it's called. And, you know, like I said in the book, the first time I did it, I wasn't afraid. Somebody told me that it was like a tanning bed. I had a tanning addiction, so I was
all right.
I know. I was like, so, I mean, I was so excited when I went there the first time. I was like, wow. I told the nurse, I cannot wait for this treatment. Finally, you're giving me something I like.
So you were thinking, who is this lady?
I know. I was clueless. And you know what? I did look the information up. I think part of me was in denial, you know? I mean, I'd already gone through like using the cream, and I hated that. And I just thought, wow, they're going to give me something to keep motivating me to want to, you know, take care of my skin. Well, it wasn't like that at all. They, you know, you go into the doctor's office and the nurse, you know, puts you back in a chair. She takes out this, you know, it's medicine, and it looks like, I say in the book, it's like a glue stick, and they just rub it all over your face. And especially for me and for most people, around your nose, you know, because I had precancerous spots all over my face. And then they put you in a dark room for an hour and 10 minutes. And it's not a big deal. You know, I mean, there's like a little tiny bit of light so you can read a book. You know, I had my husband go with me the first time, and I just sat there. The worst thing that happened during that hour and 10 minutes was, you know, your face gets a little tight because of that medicine that they put on. Then after that, the nurse, you know, came to get me, and she said, "Are you ready?" And I said, "I have been looking forward to this. Yes, I'm ready." So I left, you know, said goodbye to my husband, followed her to this room. And as soon as we got in the room, I saw this big contraption, and it was like a trifold, like mirror kind of a thing. And she told me to go over to the sink, wash my face, which I did, pull up my hair. She gave me some goggles, and I sat down in this chair, and then she moved this contraption like right in front of me. So no matter where you turned, that machine was right there. And before she left, she gave me 2 things. She said, "I'm going to give you a spray bottle," because I couldn't see her at that time. And she goes, "I'm going to give you a little fan." And I told her straight out, I said, "Hey," I go, "you don't know me." I go, "Hey, I had a tanning addiction. I won't need these." And she said, "Whatever you do, don't put them down." And as soon as she left that room and turned on that blue light, I have never in my life felt that much pain. I honestly thought the first time that I did it, that I was going to die in that room. I didn't think that I would be able to survive. The pain was unbearable. I was screaming for someone to save me. I was so afraid because I was all alone.
Right.
You know, and when the nurse came back, you know, she didn't know what was wrong with me. And I told her, I said, "I think I'm dying. You know, I'm sorry. I understand what I did." It finally hit me when I was in that room, exactly what I had done to myself.
Wow.
You know, and paying people, you know, not to hurt me. I don't want to say it the wrong way, but, you know, it was a consequence of my actions. And it wasn't something that I ever wanted to go through again. I've done it, you know, 3 times altogether. I never go in there alone anymore because, you know, it was so fearful the first time that, you know, and now when I go, I mean, the second and the third time, you know, I've had really positive people, you know, give me uplifting music to listen to. I've had my daughter with me. The nurse stayed with me the second time, you know, just talk to me, just so that you take your focus off of the pain. You can't get rid of the pain, but at least your focus isn't on that, because you're spraying, you're fanning. I mean, it's like you're multitasking, behind that
Right.
machine. But,
Wow.
it's made me appreciate, I mean, I just appreciate life so much more, now than I ever did before. And it's with struggles, it's with, barriers. I mean, none of this is like fun things that I have to go through, but it's my journey and I have to accept it. And by accepting it, I can overcome it.
Sure.
And I
Yeah.
can look it in the face. And, I try not to let it overpower me. I mean, there's, certain circumstances where, you get told a diagnosis or you get told something where, it can bring you momentarily down, but I don't stay there anymore. I have a reason by speaking, by, writing this book, to use my pain to offer hope to someone else.
Yeah, I love how, I think it was towards like maybe even the introduction to your book, how you said, "I am not a victim, I am the victor."
Yes, I
I thought
believe
that was
that
a neat way to
wholeheartedly.
phrase that. So the torture room,
Yes.
one more thing, I have a question about that, because you said that the way that you were able to survive that was I liked what you said, the power of prayer. So
Yes.
can you share with us a little bit about how the power of prayer kind of helped you through that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. When the nurse came back the first time and she said that she couldn't stay with me and that she could just give me a break, but not, take away, not stop the process early, because it lasted 17 minutes and 40 seconds. I knew that I couldn't keep screaming and crying out for help because no one was going to help me. I had to deal with it. I had to get through it. So I just started praying. I prayed as I, fanned my face, sprayed water on my face. And, the second time that I had the surgery, or the treatment done for my face, that PDT treatment, before I went into that torture room, I prayed heavily. I prayed for, for me to be protected against the pain. I didn't ask for it to be pain-free because that's, not possible. And I need, again, I don't, I own up to what I did. So, I mean, if it's there's always going to be some pain involved, but I've got to be able to dig deeper than that. And so by praying about it, I asked for armor. I asked to not be alone and for the pain to be tolerable, not to be so intense. And I mean, all my prayers were answered. I went into that room. The nurse stayed with me, even though I didn't really ask her to. She asked me. The pain wasn't intense. And as soon as that second treatment was done compared to the first treatment when it was over, I was bawling. I was crying. I was so ashamed. Yeah. The second time, my husband was expecting the same outcome. I walked out of that room. I'm smiling. I said, I survived. I survived. Yeah. And I'm, it's okay. That was kind of like my monster. You know what I mean? That room had a lot of significance to me.
Sure.
But, persevering through it and just, knowing that, I was protected and that I never have to be alone. I just kind of went to that inner, spirituality, that inner, my inner faith, and I've never been disappointed.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. One of the quotes that you use, and I don't know if this is your quote or it's someone else's.
Probably not, but I'll tell you.
Well, it's your skin is an elephant. It never forgets.
Yes, that's a power. I think I just reread the book this morning just so that I could be fresh in my mind. And I think I quoted it 3 times. It is not my quote. It comes from, it's a website. It's called checkyourskin.net. And one of the dermatologists that did one of the surgeries on me on my forehead, he let me go to his website in the midst of, going through surgery when I was waiting for the results. And he said, check out my website and watch the video and tell me what you think. I watched that video, and one of the people in that video, and it's all about surviving melanoma, which is the worst type of skin cancer. And it's all these people, talking about their own experience. And one of the ladies says, your skin is like an elephant. It never forgets. And I was hooked. I love that quote. I've used that quote so many times when I speak. It's powerful. It's a good reminder for all of us. You might think, oh, hey, 1 sunburn, not a big deal. 2 sunburns, oh, well, it's your skin is like, it's never going to forget. It will, I mean, in my case, I can only talk about myself. It took decades for my skin to look sick, what I call it. before I actually took action and did something about it. So that is a beautiful quote. I love that. It's powerful and yet simple at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. As I'm here at my sister's house and my brother-in-law's house today, they have 3 daughters who are teenagers, and they're into tanning and all that stuff. And I can't wait to share this interview with them and also get copies of your book for them, because I just think this is so important. And to me, that's a big takeaway, which is, you know, your skin is an elephant. It never forgets. I think that's very, very empowering.
It is. And it's, you know, it's something that I always remember. It's an easy quote to remember, you know, and that video brought me to tears. You know, I still struggle with watching that video. I've never had melanoma, but watching, you know, all of them be so strong, and it's a 5-minute video. And every time before I speak, I show that video.
Right.
It's a powerful, you know, start to, hey, this is what we're going to talk about. It's a good lead in, you know, because I'm not there. You know, I always say, I'm not here to scare you. If you get scared, that's kind of a good thing, because you need to be aware. It's all about raising awareness for something that I don't think in schools, in life, you know, we don't talk about a lot of subjects. This is a subject I've never heard anyone else but myself talk about it. Not saying that other people don't.
Yeah.
But I just think it's so important. You know, so many people die from this. So many people, you know, are struggling with this. When I first was diagnosed, I felt like I was on an island all by myself. I didn't know anyone else who was going through the same struggle. So on top of having to give up my addiction that I had since I was 10 and I was 48 years old, you know, decades of doing this, I had no support system. I don't want anyone to feel like you're alone. I don't care what your addiction is. We're all united. You know, I want to help other people, even if it's not a tanning addiction. It can be related to any kind of addiction. I think in the book, it's the monster that lives within us. It's the power that we give that, you know, that voice in our head, you know, and I know students, when they've written me letters, a lot of them have talked about that. They hear that voice in their head and they're going to turn it off. That's the whole thing. You know, I had the ability all along to turn that voice off myself. At the time, I wasn't strong enough, powerful enough. And I let my addiction run my life until I finally, you know, stepped up and took control of, you know, my life for once. So.
Yeah. And so that's interesting. So I noticed that you almost like personified your addiction in the book, right? And I know a long time ago, I read a book called Rational Recovery by Jack Trimpey, and he personified the addiction too. And I know that kind of helped me on my own journey, struggling through some of my own things. But tell us a little bit about that, because what was fascinating was, as I read, you know, tanning wasn't my cup of tea.
Right.
I had a different vehicle to get me from point A to point B. We're all trying to get to point B, and we're all using different vehicles to get us there. But I agree with what you just said so wholeheartedly, because everything that you wrote about, I thought you were almost inside my head. Yeah. You know, definitely many years ago, but still to a certain extent to this day. I mean, you opened up so beautifully about everything.
Oh,
and I really connected so much with the writing. And the approach you took as far as personifying it, I thought that was a really creative and a very relevant and very effective way to look at addiction.
No, thank you, Sean. You know, and that's, I mean, I considered my addiction to be a friend, not a nice friend, you know, but a friend who was controlling, who told me what to do. You know, I relied on my addiction, on that voice in my head, like I was, you know, my kids or my husband. You know, anywhere I went, you know, like I defended my addiction with my kids. You know, when they would talk to me or come up to me and cry and say, "Mom, we're worried, you know, we don't want you to die." You know, I felt like I had to defend that. I know I don't want to call it a person, but that addiction. I mean, I felt like I put my kids in their place because I had to defend it, because I didn't want to get rid of it. It was so much a part of me, you know, even when the first time when I met the dermatologist that I'm still seeing, you know, before I went into, you know, to the office, I made an agreement with my addiction, because I knew she was going to try to scare me, that no matter what she was going to say to me, I was never, ever going to stop. I was never going to quit tanning. I relied on my addiction. So when I had to break free of my addiction, that was so hard because it was like someone that I grew up with. It was someone that was steadfast, you know, that I could rely on. Instead of relying on people, I actually relied on my addiction more than I did people. You know, it was a very unhealthy, you know, habit. It was a very unhealthy way to live. And, you know, I have people in my life right now who have their own addictions. And even though, you know, I've defeated my addiction, you know, with the tanning, I can see how, you know, I can see those same behaviors in other people. And it's not that I'm trying to judge them. It's not a judgmental thing. It comes from a place of compassion, you know, that I understand, you know, what you're feeling. And it was, you know, giving up my addiction was the hardest thing I ever did. It was like, you know, cutting off a leg or cutting off my arm. It was such a part of me. And I didn't know if I could survive without it.
Yeah. Is it bad that I feel that way about my smartphone?
No, no, I actually have friends who say that they feel like their phone is like an extension of their arm, or their hand. And
that's
you
right.
know, I think that's kind of funny. You know, again, that's not my forte. You know, my phone has never been a big thing, but you're right. I mean, you know, people can have addictions to food. You know, you can have addictions to video games. You can have addictions to watching television. I've had so many students come up to me and tell me what their addiction is. You know, it's not yours, but I can understand. I can relate to your addiction to what I'm struggling with.
Right.
Or to what I need to look at myself and to make a decision. Do I keep going this route, or do I need to choose a different path?
Right.
I could have stayed on that same path I was on. You know, I could have kept going down. I mean, when I first, you know, heard, you know, my doctor asked me if I was ready and willing to die for my addiction, you know, if I was ready to die, you know, from skin cancer, I almost shut the door on her. You know, I almost just said, you know, you're not going to tell me what to do. My addiction never let me down. You know, and it's really sad that you know, that I felt that way. But I'm just so grateful now that I can see past it. You know, and life is so much, you know, better without an addiction. It's just so much. I mean, I feel like ever since, you know, I started my treatments, I've had to, you know, I can't hide anymore. I have to face what's in front of me, where when I had my addiction, I could run and hide and I could just go, you know, tan, and I could go do whatever I wanted to make myself feel good. I don't have that ability anymore. I don't want to choose that ability anymore. So it's, you know, more of a wake up call, but I appreciate things so much more now.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually living. I actually have a life, and I have, you know, things that I am accomplishing and that I'm looking forward to. Or before, the only thing I looked forward to, Sean, was getting up in the morning and tanning. I mean, that was it. That was the biggest goal of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. You've been liberated in a sense.
I have. It's like I can see now. I can see clearly. You know, there's no more clouds. There's no more fog. You know, I mean, I still battle, you know, with, you know, the way I look. You know, it's hard. It's been a struggle since I stopped tanning. I used self tanners for a long time because I never really knew what the color of my skin was. You know, I was 10 years old when I started. I burned my skin so many times that, you know, to think back to what my skin actually, what I was born with, I can't even tell you. My skin is so damaged, and it's just, you know, looking in the mirror and not seeing that person, that the only person I have pictures of is the person when I was tanning, you know? So not to have that same, you know, it's like I'm re-identifying myself. And it's not always easy. You know, I don't dislike myself, but it's, you know, it's a struggle, and it's something that I either will overcome, or it's just, you know, something that I learned to deal with.
Yeah. Well, like you said, you're a work in progress. We all are, I think.
Every single day. That's right. But, you know, you know, that's just something that, you know, I don't focus on that so much. It's not like something that, you know, destroys my day, or, you know, something like that. But it's definitely something that, you know, I know a lot of, you know, younger people can relate to. It's, you know, this whole, like, what's on the outside versus what's on the inside. You know, what do we focus on? Let's focus on the inside, you know, versus the way someone looks or clothes, or, you know, like I tell kids, I go, I don't care what kind of car you drive. You probably have a better phone than me. Maybe you've got better clothes, but that stuff doesn't matter. That's not priceless. You know, your life is priceless. What you do with your life, how you help others, to me, that's priceless. So
awesome. Awesome. You know, one of the, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the stepping stones, I think, that helped you along your journey, and I know one of the stepping stones that has helped me with mine, was getting educated.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I'm a big fan, as you know, of personal development, personal growth. I would call it self-education, but you made mention of something, and I can't remember what exactly it was. It was something like, I couldn't do it. And I think you were referring to tanning, but like, I couldn't do this again, this behavior again,
Oh, yeah.
because I had knowledge now.
Right.
Right.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, it was after when I was first diagnosed in October of 2011 with, you know, the pre-skin cancer. I'd already gone through, you know, like the PDT treatment. And it was springtime because, you know, this was all during the fall and winter. And I was okay with, you know, not indoor tanning. I was, you know, using self tanners. I was totally okay with all of that. And then spring came. Well, spring, you know, is, you know, beautiful weather out. You know, that's when I would start laying outside again. And I just thought, you know what? I miss it. I want to do it again. What harm will it do? So I went through my same routine. You know, I had an old lawn chair in the garage, pulled it out, cleaned it off, put my radio on, got my bucket of water, you know, got my watch out, put my bikini on, went out in the backyard, you know, on the patio. And I put a little tiny bit of sunscreen on and I laid down, and less than 30 seconds after I laid down, inside my head, I'm like, what am I doing? I can't do this. You know, I already have like spots all over my skin. You know, I just had 2 PDT treatments on my face. You know, what am I doing? You know, I'm going back to an old habit, to an old routine that didn't suit me well. Look what it's gotten me into. And so I just tried to let it go. You know, I was kind of fighting within myself. And instead of like laying out, like where you could see where I was like laying front wise, I just rolled over and I went on my stomach. And all of a sudden I just shot up and I said, you know what? I can't. I thought I could still tan. I thought I could go back to an old friend that had done me wrong, honestly. But I knew that I had knowledge, and I can't do that anymore. She had, you know, given me so much information. I now couldn't turn a blind eye to what I was doing to myself and all the damage that I had done. So I stopped, and I never tanned again, and I never outdoor tanned again. But I talk in the book about that old chair. You know, I had such ties to that chair. It meant, you know, it gave me really good memories. And it took me 3 times to let that chair go. You know, I kept saving it. I kept saving it and throwing it back in the garage, hanging it back up, you know, because I thought, if I got rid of that chair, who am I?
Yeah.
I don't have a life without that chair. I don't have a life without tanning. I can't, then who will I be? What will my purpose be in life? And after the 3rd time, when I finally just said, you know what, I'm not taking it out. And believe me, I was so panic stricken, anxiety, you know, and then the garbage truck came and I didn't save it. That's when I knew I had turned the corner, and I was like, you know what, I'm free. That was holding me back, even though I didn't see it until I got rid of it. It was holding me back to an old life that I had to be done with. I could no longer pretend.
Yeah, that represented so much, right?
It did. It just, you know, just looking at it, I mean, it was old and dumpy. Nobody would have ever, you know, thought it had any significant meaning, but it, again, I tied so much, you know, all of my, like, you know, positive things were tied to that chair, you know, until again, I started going through the treatments, and then I just, you know, I just couldn't do it. But
wow. Yeah, you know, as one of the reasons I love books, and same reason I love movies, is, you know, we read and we watch autobiographically, right? So
yes,
I was, you know, when I read that part of your story, I couldn't help but chuckle to myself, because I've done the same exact things with old letters from ex-girlfriends that I've saved.
That's funny.
So, yeah. So, I mean, that was very relatable to me, because in a different sense, I've been through, you know, that too. And it is such, again, a liberating feeling.
Even like someone with cigarettes, you know, it's like throwing out that pack of cigarettes, saying, you know, I'm done. I'm not going to do that anymore.
That's right.
It can be like that food, like that piece of cake, or, you know, anything. We can all, I mean, that's a great thing I think about the book, is that it's so relatable. You know, you can sit there and say, well, you know, I never tanned. I don't have a tanning addiction. But if you know anybody that's ever struggled with an addiction, and before I speak with students, I always have them raise their hands. I always say, hey, how many of us know somebody who either has an addiction or did have an addiction? 95% of those hands go up. Yeah. So even if they personally don't have an addiction, they know parents, uncles, aunts, cousins, relatives, friends, family members, whoever that have had struggles with that. So,
Yeah.
it's,
I think a very important message here is like, if you have an addiction, you don't have to quit today necessarily, but maybe a stepping stone in the right direction is just to learn a little bit more about it, and maybe to just get educated a little bit more, because that knowledge, they say knowledge is power. And then other people say, well, knowledge is only potential power. It's only power if you apply it. But just, right. So just because you could have, a lot of people, myself included, you do learn about the devastating effects and the consequences and, all these terrible things that could happen should you continue, but you still continue.
Right.
The pivotal moment is when you made the decision to stop the activity, to stop that behavior, which is not easy to do.
No.
It's scary and it's uncomfortable, and you're just dealing with so much mentally, emotionally. But I think that's a really good message for people listening, is if you're struggling with something, no one's asking you to stop cold turkey today.
Right.
But maybe just go on the internet, read a book or two, or listen to a book if you're not a reader, but just begin your journey of education so you can start to understand it a little better, and maybe start to see some of those cues and triggers along the way that might help you to course correct whatever it might be. Right?
No, that's great advice. I know, I like that a lot, Sean. I know with myself, before I leave, at the very end of my presentation, I always, tell students or whoever I'm speaking to, if you ever find yourself with an addiction, just talk to someone, seek help. You can, I like it when people come up to me and they, ask me different questions. It doesn't mean that, and I've had different students talk to me about, I had one student say that, she's tried killing herself. I've had another student say that, she cuts herself. So she gets the whole skin thing. She gets the whole addiction thing, and I'm not there to, stop anyone from, doing anything. I'm not a, therapist. I'm not a psychologist, that's not my role when I go to speak. But I think by saying it out loud, you kind of take away the power that's within you. I just think a lot of us just, like I carried it. None of my really close friends even knew that I had a problem with tanning until they read the book. And then they've gotten back to me and they're like, wow, I never knew. Now, these are good friends that I grew up with in high school, I hung out with. I kept that secret from most people, except from my family, my immediate family. Because I didn't know any different. And I was, I knew I had an addiction when I was in my 20s. I honestly knew that I was going to die from skin cancer. I didn't know when, but it actually gave me great peace, because I thought, hey, most people go through life and have no idea what's going to, take their life from them, what's going to kill them. I do. So at least I don't have to worry about it. I just don't know when it's going to take my life, but at least I know how. And even though that sounds really kind of distorted, and it really is, it did give me comfort.
You're not one of those people who likes to be in control, are you, Jana?
Let me think about that. Absolutely. I know that's a big part of it too, is, having that control. And at the time, I know my husband had his own addiction. My husband back in the day when we were first dating drank heavily. And so, alcohol was a problem. And then he started smoking, and he was smoking cigarettes, cigars, all the time. And, I saw him with his destructive habit, with his addiction, and I didn't like that he had it. I didn't like that he smoked. He would be in the garage and I'd be in the backyard on the patio, laying out, and neither one of us had the courage to talk to the other person. I didn't want him to smoke. I thought his addiction was so much worse than mine, because at least I'm not breathing in smoke. Yeah, I'm just getting tan. I didn't see, how I was hurting my skin, honestly. But I thought, wow, you're smoking and all this, it's going into your lungs and what damage it's doing. How can you do that? But I didn't want to talk to him about it, because I was afraid if I talked to him about his, he would talk to me about mine. Sure. And then I couldn't give it up. There was too much risk involved, to even bring it up, which is so sad. My kids would talk to us about it. You know, my kids would tell us to both stop, you know, please, we love you. My kids cried to me, you know, all the time when I was younger. And I mean, I don't mean to sound like I was cold, you know, to them, but I honestly couldn't relate to what they were saying. I just looked at them and I thought, hey, I'm not hurting you. I'm not hurting anyone. I'm just having fun. Just leave me alone.
Hmm.
Even through their tears, I really couldn't connect it. I couldn't, you know, empathize with them. I couldn't, you know, I couldn't stop because they wanted me to stop.
Sure.
I wish I could have. If it was that easy, there'd be, you know, I don't think anybody would have an addiction. You know, if somebody could just say, hey, please stop. I love you. I want you to stop. Okay. It's not that simple. It's not that easy. You know, and I know I've had students come up to me during, you know, when I'm speaking. And I remember in particular one boy in 6th grade, and he raised his hand and I thought he had a question for, you know, for me. And he said, my dad smokes all the time. He goes, tell me how to get him to stop. I'm afraid he's going to die. And it brought back memories to my kids telling me, you know, Mom, we don't want you to die. And me just being able to look at them. And again, I say in the book that the only thing I ever said to my kids was, as long as I die tan. That got that, you know, I felt like I stood up for myself and my addiction, that, you know, took, you know, whatever you're saying, whatever you're thinking, as long as I die tan. That's how much importance I put on tanning. It was, you know, if tanning, my addiction was above my kids, you know, I put it above my marriage. I put it above, I didn't even have self-respect for myself, you know, to stop.
Sure. So do you have any, so that was a very powerful part of your story in the book was, you know, because I have 3 young children of my own.
Yes.
And I know, you know, a lot of us parents struggle with addictions, and our kids unfortunately get kind of caught in the crossfire, and we lose a lot of valuable, precious time opportunities because we're focused on, you know, maybe the wrong things. So
right.
Do you have any words of wisdom or words of encouragement that you could bestow upon parents who are struggling with their addictions and probably experiencing a little guilt along the way because, you know they are compromising their time and their attention? And, you know, so what would be your words of wisdom for them?
You know, I think especially for adults, you know, if you know you have a problem, you know, and I know it's so much easier, you know, to say it than to do it, but to seek help, you know, if you go to a church, you know, maybe talk to a pastor. If you have a really good friend, talk to a friend. You know, you necessarily don't have to go, you know, from like, you know, and I detoured, you know, going to a dermatologist for as long as I possibly could. It wasn't like my first, you know, thing that I did. You know, I started going to other people and saying, hey, what's wrong with my skin, that weren't dermatologists, just to try to find out, you know, what was wrong with me and what I could do, you know, to help myself, and if this was normal. So I would say, you know, just find someone to talk to. You know, a lot of times, and what's really great is most, you know, addictions, like I've been to AA meetings, you know, through school, you know, going, you know, there just to learn more about, you know, what they do there. You know, I know they've got like Gamblers Anonymous, you know, there's a lot of places that you can go to, you know, to gain insight. You know, but just don't, the biggest thing that I can say is just don't isolate yourself. That's what I did. That's where you get in trouble is, you know, I have no problems and I don't, you know, I didn't talk to anybody about it. So again, I hid it. It was secret. Nobody really knew, but it had so much power and control because again, I didn't own up to it. I didn't talk about it. I didn't go up and say, hey, you know, I've got a tanning addiction. What can I do? Can you help me? I didn't seek anything. I just kind of thought I'm fine with what I'm doing.
Sure. Yeah,
So
there's a real power and a real benefit to the community.
Yes.
Thing, right? Yeah.
Right. And once you speak it, I think you take some of that power away. You know, once I was able to say, you know, I have an addiction and, you know, I have skin cancer and, you know, I was a former tanner. You know, I no longer had to protect my addiction. I no longer have to live in fear. You know, I was very fearful because, you know, my addiction was such a part of me that to think of life without it, you know, I had to protect that.
Sure.
You know, I made sacrifices for that. You know, I stood up to other people for my addiction. You know, don't be like me. Don't just make it where it's, you know, something that you do secretly where, you know, it becomes, if it's controlling your life, it's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you maybe referenced this 2 or 3 times. I know at the end of the book, you reference it, but you said like something about 2 magic words or 2 words that can change your life.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Help me. Those 2 simple words could have changed my life. And I had so many opportunities. I've had so many, wonderful, caring people, on my path that I pretty much, screamed at, yelled at, slammed doors in their faces, not literally, but, for wanting to help me. And, I regret that. I mean, not that I live in regret, but that was just something that's empowering. When I go talk to students, I always say, hey, say the 2 words. I was never brave enough to say. I wasn't brave. I was chicken. That's why I kept with my tanning addiction, because I wasn't brave enough. But say those 2 words to anybody. You can say it to a teacher, to a friend, to your parents, to anyone. Help me, and you will get the help that you need, and it will start you on the path, to a better life, to life, hopefully addiction free, with any kind of a problem. We need to reach out, like you said, the community, to friends. You need to, we're all there to help each other. So it's not a sign of weakness. I know a lot of times people are like, well, if I ask for help, people are going to think I'm weak, I'm not strong. Absolutely not. Strength comes in numbers. So we need to rely on other people. We need to, gain strength from other people. So.
Yeah. And I think there's some real inner strength in the act of surrender in that sense too. It can be so liberating and so freeing, and there's real strength. I mean, you have to have a lot of courage.
Yes.
That's not weak. That's not cowardly.
No.
That is one of the most courageous things that we can do, because we value control so much.
We
right?
do. And and that's the thing. I mean, I never said those 2 words.
Yeah.
But thank goodness I had, like my dermatologist that I have now, that she was the one who helped me. I didn't go up to her and say, hey, help me. I just said, hey, this is the rules. This is what you're here to see. Nothing else. Just tell me what you can do for me. I had no idea that my life was going to be transformed that day, that my life was going to take a different direction that day. She saved my life.
Wow.
The day that I met her, and I'll never forget it. She's still my dermatologist. I tell her all the time, she's my hero. If she wouldn't have taken action that day, she was the first person who stood up to my addiction. No one else did.
Wow.
When she said those words, that affected me, that changed my course, that, made my head turn. I paid attention from that time forward. And, it's different, it's difficult. It's different, it's a different life, but, you know what, it's a life in progress. And, anytime that you're moving forward, it's all good.
Yeah, that's right. All good. Yeah. So in every journey, there's a hero and a guide. So in this journey, you're the hero, and she has been your guide and still is, which is really neat. So, let's talk about what you're up to now. So you mentioned in the book, and you've mentioned a few times during the interview, you're speaking, you're talking to students. I loved in the book when you talked about one of your friends. I don't know if that was your dermatologist or another friend, but that she was really encouraging you, and she was telling you to bring the darkness into the light. Right. Yeah. So how are you bringing the darkness into the light today? What are you up to?
I'm just continuing to, try to get my message out with my book, with, public speaking. Anytime that, I considered my addiction to be my darkness, and getting out of my addiction to be in the light. And that's what she was encouraging me to do. She saw that I was depressed. She saw that I had no motivation, that I was so stuck in like a hole that I had dug for myself, of self-pity, of regret, of just anger. And she just, she helped, she just lended me her hand, really, and helped me out of that darkness. I also have another friend of mine who just said, take your light and you shine, like this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, that little song.
Cool. Yeah.
And he says, that's kind of what you're doing. He said, you're taking your light that you found, from, being rid of your addiction, and you're taking it and you're spreading it to others. Because my biggest goal, Sean, with this book, with speaking, is to have people, young people, I don't care what age you are, not fall into the same traps, the same pitfalls that I did. If I can save one person's life, or just get one person to seek help, or to not, listen to an addiction for the first time, or, to just even talk to their parents. I've had so many, teachers who've come up to me afterwards and said, these kids are going home and talking to their parents. It's starting conversations.
Yes.
with a teenager, I mean, my kids are all grown up, but with teenagers, if you get your kids to come home and be excited about something and want to talk to you about something, you begin to, make a relationship. And if you get that relationship tight enough, you're going to have that support system, which again, I lacked when I was growing up. I didn't have that support system, but I'm adamant about, getting my name out there, getting my message out there to help others, because I felt all alone. And that was the worst place I could ever be.
Yeah.
But I'm not alone anymore. And by sharing this, by sharing my story, by writing this book, by sharing my message, that's, I just don't want anyone else to have to go through what I have.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talk about how you have almost a new addiction is how I interpreted it. But you talked about being, after I think maybe the first time, you talked through your nervousness and the courage it took to, mustered up the courage. You spoke in front of your first class of students and you said, I was hooked on the high I received from telling my story and delivering my message. And what I found amazing was it almost took me as long to read all of the letters from the kids that I'm so grateful you included that in the book. That was just amazing.
Aren't they beautiful?
No, they're incredible.
I mean, to be honest, I think that's the best part of the book. If you want the book, get the book for the letters. I mean, the letters just are so honest and pure. And I'm so grateful. But yeah, the first time that I spoke, I had never, wanted to do public speaking. I wasn't, didn't consider myself to be comfortable in front of a large group. But because of my passion behind the message, I was prepared to just at least give it a try. Even if it didn't work, hey, at least I tried. But yeah, as soon as I was done, and I knew from the minute that I spoke, and again, this isn't being prideful or, I'm very humble, please know that, but that I was, I had their attention that whole 45 minutes. I was hooked. I thought, what, this is the best high I've ever had in my life. And it was a beautiful high. It wasn't like the kind that you get from smoking something or from drinking or, for me, for tanning. It was just honest. It was such a beautiful, place to be. I felt like on cloud nine. I felt like nothing could touch me, that I found my purpose in my life. And isn't that something that we all need to find? I needed to find something that just fulfilled me in a way that, I know I talked about in the book, and, I talk about this with anybody, is that, I still, like, I'm empty. A lot of times, like, people feel empty. And so I tried to fill it. Well, what did I fill it with? Tanning, you know what I mean? Just doing anything that I wanted. It was very self-serving. Well, it didn't fill me. I was always empty, so it's like, kind of like, it was like a car. It was always like needed gas. I always felt empty. Speaking about my book, speaking about my story, that fills me. That's a complete, full. I mean, there's nothing better than that. Knowing that you have potentially helped someone, and that you've made a difference in someone's life. You can't put a price on that. That's something that's priceless. That's something that, I just am so grateful and honored, that I have those letters in the book, because it just, verifies that, I mean, it would be one thing if I just talked about my story without those letters, but those letters just, give it so much substance.
They really do. Yeah, they're beautiful.
They are. They've brought me to tears. I have thousands. I keep them all. They're all in my hope chest. Mostly my hope chest is letters, because I can't, every single one of them in my times of darkness, because I still have them, I pull them out, and I'm just reminded, like, I might go there to help them, but at the end they help me. So it's such a win-win.
Yeah, there's reciprocity there, isn't there?
Yes, exactly.
That's fantastic.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, this has been so much fun. So thank you for investing your time here on the show today. This has been a lot of fun, Jana.
It was a great time. Thank you so much, Sean, for having me on. It was so great. It's always great talking to you.
You bet. You bet. So where do you want the audience to go? Like, where can we find you? Where can we find your book?
If people want to find out more information, they can go to my website, which is tanningaddiction.com.
Awesome.
Yep, right there.
tanningaddiction.com. Great. And if there's one message that you'd like to leave our listeners and our viewers today, what would it be?
That's That's a hard question to answer, but if I had to answer with just one thing, I would say, especially because, it's a summertime. I think it just turned summer. When was it? A couple of days ago. But all year round, you need to take care of your skin, whether you're a parent, whether you're a teenager, whoever you are, your skin is your largest organ. You need to protect your skin. You need to wear sunscreen. There's so many different products out there now. I know I just bought some sun sleeves so that I can wear short sleeve shirts, and then I can wear like this sun sleeve, so that I don't always have to wear long sleeves. And it's really, it's cool. It's got SPF in it. They've got SPF clothing. There's so many different ways. All the old like sunscreens that people used to use, like the goopy ones, there's so many more different choices out there now. There's one that I just bought the other day for myself and my son, and it's like a deodorant stick, but it's sunscreen. So, because my son's like, well, I hate putting on, that greasy stuff. And I said, hey, rub it on.
Yeah.
Rub it on. You don't even know you're even wearing it, but it protects your skin. Just protect your skin. Wear hats, wear sunglasses, wear protective clothing, sit in the shade, don't lay out, just be careful out in the sun, and, enjoy the summer, but just enjoy it safely.
Yeah, no, that's a good message. As you know, my family and I recently moved down to Dallas.
Yes.
It is hot.
Yes.
The sun is really intense down there. We're not used to it. And when we first got down there, before I reread your book again, we're kind of doing the face thing with the kids and trying to, get it all. Couple minutes, all three kids were good to go. And I'm in the process of reading your book. I'm like, all right, get over here. And I'm lathering every orifice they have. And we're spending like 15 minutes. I'm urging my wife to read this book,
Yeah.
So what's really neat is, because of your education and your willingness to write this book and share your story and share your message, I think, there's going to be a lot of benefactors of that.
I certainly hope so. I believe that too. I just, I've learned so much. And even, for myself, I look at students and all the time, or anybody, and I just say, hey, you know what? I wear sunscreen. It's crazy because my skin is already damaged. I'm never going to have perfect skin again. My skin will never be healthy. It's damaged skin, but I still wear sunscreen. And a couple of years ago, when I went to my dermatologist, because I see her all the time, she looked at me and she said, what are you doing differently? And at first I thought I was doing something bad. And so I said, I don't know. I go, what? And she goes, your skin on your arms and your hands looks better. And I said, really? I go, I'm wearing sunscreen. And she said, keep doing it. Okay. So if it can help me, it can help anyone. And, again, when you compare it to, the cost of surgeries, the cost of treatments, I know in the book I said $35,000. Well, with all the other surgeries and treatments I've had, I'm probably close to $75,000, $85,000 for treatments. Wow. Not that I've had to pay, but that it's cost to do all the treatments and the creams and, everything that I have to do. Less than $10 for sunscreen. Less than $10 for sunscreen, $75,000, $85,000 for treatments. It's a no-brainer.
Wow.
We all need to protect our skin, all skin types. It doesn't matter what your skin type is. We all need to protect it. We all need to, wear sunscreen. Be careful. Awesome. Have fun, but be careful.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Sean.
Thank you so much for the empowering message. Yeah, me too. Thanks so much. Have an awesome week. And thanks for being on the show.
All right. See you later. Bye, Sean.
All right. Sean here again. Thanks so much for joining us this week. Say, if you like what you saw today, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel so that you can catch future episodes. Take care and make it a great day.